Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the last two sessions of the 8th Annual Digital Africa Summit. We have three excellent speakers to kick off this panel on Internet excellence. Time and again, speakers in the course of the day have come back to where is the Internet going and what are people doing on the Internet? What kind of Internet can we expect to see in the future? So, kicking off this panel on Internet excellence, we have Rachel Payne, who is the country manager for Google in Uganda. She has been with Google in Uganda for 5 years, traveled extensively across the various offices in Africa for Google, also helped set up the Google Africa team. She also was in the founding team of Google.org, has been part of the investment and group strategy portfolio for Eastern Africa for Google, graduated from Stanford, and is a veteran of the entrepreneurship culture from Silicon Valley. Will you all please welcome Rachel Payne.
Thank you very much. It's a big honor to be here again for the second year in a row as a speaker at the Digital Africa Summit. And you'll notice in the program it says Joe Muchero, who's regional lead for Africa. No, I'm not Joe, I'm Rachel. He was called away unexpectedly, so I'm filling in, but hopefully it will still be entertaining. I'm here to speak about next generation internet services, and just a quick review, I think you know our mission. In case you don't, it's Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. A little bit about our growth path over the last decade or so, and looking at how we've evolved as a company might give us some indication for where the internet in general is going. But when we think about Africa in particular, there are unique opportunities that emerge that we think are quite exciting. And just an interesting fun fact, in Google South Africa, we get more Google searches by phone than traditional PC. I think this is a great indicator for the level of interest, access, and activity that's happening right now with mobile and with the rise of mobile web. So I'm going to attempt to play a video clip for you right now, but the network's been a little bit funny. Again, why I'm here, why we're all here. So if it doesn't work, please forgive me, and I will do my best to accommodate you otherwise. By the way, YouTube is banned at this hotel, but I found another way around it. In fact, it's very much about technology-driven initiatives that build for the long term. So these are long-term investments that we hope and believe will have a positive impact on users in Africa. I don't think it's any surprise that this is the largest youth market, and Uganda is the largest in the world by breakdown of population, so more people under the age 15 than above. And I think that's a great opportunity in terms of innovation, dynamism, and really shifting what's possible from both a technology and general internet standpoint. And it's no question you've seen what we're looking to do here in Africa is not about short-term revenues. In fact, it's very much about the level of computing power that's now available quite literally at your fingertips. Creates an entirely new paradigm for computing. Secondly, connected, obviously. We have now fiber, and it's a noticeable difference, though, of course, still room to improve. We also have devices that are connected much more, not only in terms of abundance, but also proliferation. So it's the bandwidth that's increasing, it's the number of devices that are connected that's increasing. And then finally, cloud computing, which I'm sure you've heard quite a bit from Google, but this is now an unprecedented level of access to that computing power in the cloud, the ability to store, retrieve data of all forms. But then, of course, to connect with the cloud individually, collectively, things can start to happen now. When you put the three together, this is a powerful moment in time for technology, and it is a terrific opportunity to be in Africa. So again, mobile first, and what does this mean for us? Internet access is the key limiting factor right now that's preventing so many different opportunities, especially economic ones. And finally, delivering high-impact products and driving local innovation. Again, there's a few examples here, but I'll get into some detail. What we're looking at is figuring out what products are valued by users and where we can really integrate with local innovators to deliver high-value products. So the first one, create value for users. I think many of us know that there's an enormous gap between the information people value most here and the information that's available, and importantly, broadly available in the more further reaches of the population. So that's one big area that we may not directly address because we're not publishers per se. We don't do content creation as such, but we can create platforms that enable value to be created, and importantly, local participation and local languages. And you know that internet usage in Africa is very low. 2% of global users isn't a good statistic, but things are getting better. There's a lot here. We've actually seen all this data already, thankfully. I don't have to go through it. Most of the speakers covered this much better than I did. The point here, though, is bandwidth is expensive, and so are the devices. Both need to change. And language barriers. So this is complex, obviously, but it's vital. For content to be relevant and useful, it has to be understood, and people need to be able to contribute. This is where local language is essential for creating a positive user experience online and tangible value. The content is high quality. Another case study, I mentioned this a little bit, which was our first foray into mobile here locally. And this was the project that we had worked on with Grameen Foundation and MTN Uganda, and we're still developing. And you actually will be seeing a lot more about this in the coming weeks. Stay tuned for new announcements. But the exciting thing here is that the level of interest among users is very high. The need is great. And we're finding that some of the anticipated constraints around usage, namely price and the lack of awareness of the value of services, are things that we hope we can help remedy. With Google Trader, for instance, people can access this via SMS or online, but they can still interact with each other. So if you make your listings available online, someone can still find you even if they've never used a computer. This is the kind of market activity that we're hoping to generate with this type of a product. With App Lab, which is the collaboration amongst the three partners, we went through a methodology that was user needs driven, which is Google's philosophy. And we ended up with a suite of applications that were uniquely designed to serve those with extreme needs. There were other things we launched with Google SMS, but these are the ones that we believed were much more focused on rural and underserved communities. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm sure there's going to be many questions, comments. I can see a hand up at the back already, and I think we're short of mics here. What are some of your thoughts on the broadband penetration in outside of the tier 1 cities in Africa, the tier 2, the smaller cities? What kind of applications would you see for mobile broadband?
Just to make sure I understand, what's my view of the broadband penetration in tier 1 cities?
And how this would it fit into your plans for increasing broadband access?
So in other words, what's the rate of penetration?
Yeah, yes.
Well, one, obviously there's deeper penetration in urban areas than rural. And this is an area that is, no surprise, growing rapidly as well. But we hope to invest more in making access available to the end user, the average user, not just those who are, say, corporate users, which is currently a high density of the users. And also with academic institutions, making sure that we address some of those bandwidth issues. Many of those are in the tier 1 cities. Well, I heard you also say something about apps, but I'm not sure I'm understanding.
No, I didn't say apps.
Okay.
Yes.
So, am I answering your question?
Yeah, you did. Yes, perfect. Any more
I
questions?
want to just say one more thing, though,
Sure,
although
go
it's not
for
what
it.
you asked me.
No problem, no problem.
One of the things we thought was really exciting about YouTube was that the minute we started improving latency, usage went up by, on average, greater than 20%, but sometimes much, much higher. So latency is a bad user experience. And the more latency you have, the less likely people will find value in almost any service. But the minute you change that, and we found this in tier 1 cities because that's where a lot of the investment's being made right now, what people do is, it's pretty remarkable and not often very predictable. So that's something we've been enjoying watching, is the fact that the usage patterns can be very different here than elsewhere. And there's also a lot of demand internationally for content that comes from here, but that content isn't available enough. So we found in the early days of YouTube that there were many more searches outside of Kenya for Kenyan news content on YouTube than inside Kenya. And that just tells me that the demand is not just here, it's everywhere. People want more African content.
Terrific. That's a great note on which we should end this session. Thanks so much, Rachel. A round of applause for a very informative and a very energetic speech. And despite the glitches with your pet project YouTube being banned in this hotel, you still managed to pull it off.